what was very interesting, and that I would like to have the session also, feel free to interrupt all the time, because I think the toolkit is there. If I'm just gonna pass you the theory or read the toolkit, you can do it on your own. I think it's just to give you some basic concept, but I would also like to share and really have the opportunity for you to ask a question and see how we can kind of take what we analyzed and apply it into your context. Because as Tom said, we did a huge work on programs, because programs in the last years became a really important part of the Impact Hub business model. And it's also a part where you can really, as said, measure and see the impact. So what was one of the things that it's very important is how do you make sure that the programs support your business model, have impact, and how do you improve efficiency while executing them. So one of the ways to really work on efficiency is how you standardize programs. And there's always a big trade-off between standardizing programs and creating new ones, because I feel there's a big tension between the team that you always have the person, I'm the one that loves to design new programs, and you always have some program manager that love to replicate existing programs to make sure they already know what's going to happen. So when we were trying to see, okay, what is actually the portfolio standardization is, for us, it breaks down into the 3 phases of looking at your existing programs and understanding also what is a program or what is a consultancy service. Then the second part is how do you break down the program into smaller pieces that you can then make sure you replicate along time. And then the third part is how do you use these pieces to build new programs for the future. And as I didn't want it to be like a monologue, I decided to have first a temperature check with you to understand also where are you standing. So Tom, do you know how, was it annotate function that you had that you can, every member can paint on the slide?
Yeah, it's a little pencil. We use it with Nye. I think close to your microphone, there's a little pencil. You click there, and then if you go up, I can't do it because I'm on my phone, but if you go up, you have the stamp function. You can just stamp there.
Stamp function. Can you all find it? I was annotating stamp.
I can't seem to find it.
When I share my someone has it here. Someone's doing it. Who's that?
The red one. It's me. Can you see a red dot on the screen here, painted?
Yeah. Yeah, we do see.
Okay, perfect. So I clicked here on annotate, and then there's a pencil draw, and I was just writing X. For me we're gonna do like normally if you were presential would have a floor check-in, so one side of the room, the other side of the room. So here the first thing I wanted to see with you is how many programs do you run, because this is also the basis to understand the need or the goal in standardizing programs. So on my left side you have the desert, so 1-2 programs once in a while, and on the right side you have a Chinese pool in the summer with like packed with programs, your portfolio managers going crazy. So if you can just imagine it's a linear line from 0 to 100, where would you put yourself here in number of programs?
Since I can't find mine, I will put like the desert one for one of our Impact Hubs.
Okay.
Impact Hubs Munich, and for Impact Hub Yerevan, the pool over there.
Okay.
Basically, I have both.
I can't stamp either, but I would go on the right side because I think we now have like around 50 translocal programs per year. So, yeah.
Okay, yeah, quite a lot. We lost.
For me, I'm of course in the desert.
Yeah, you're still starting.
Yeah.
So I think it doesn't.
And I'm doing impact measurement, so I can put myself like somewhere in the middle, because not all of the programs, or very few programs, actually include impact measurement. So that's something possible to say also about portfolio standardization could be something to just a shout out to include impact measurement in programs.
Okay, cool. The next one is how do you normally do budgeting? So on the left side, you see random or like finger guessing. On the right, you have a very methodical approach, mathematical. I think we can just share by talking as we're just smaller groups.
I wish I was there in the methodical one, but I'm closer to the chaotic. Yeah, closer to that one, unfortunately.
Marine?
I feel like I moved from the left side to the right side because this year we've been working on standardizing our processes, especially around budgets. So when I started, we were really like, not really, but you know, every program manager was kind of going about it in their own way, whereas now we all have like guidelines to follow.
Carlos, I guess you're still, still first budgets.
Actually, if there are similar guidelines for something like that, I would really like help with that. Because really, we do not have any standardized way of budgeting for programs.
Being super honest, I looked at all the templates that the network has, but it's, in my feeling, it's not about the template, it's about the logic of the way you do the budget. I can then show you some components along the presentation, but it's not so much about the Excel you use, but it's more about how do you calculate hours, external costs. It's more that part. Then here the last one is how are you in standardization of programs? On the left you have just starting. Every time it's a doc, customly designed program, and on the right side you're like a boss, a program machine, copy paste, bakery of programs.
Unfortunately, I'm not even. We haven't even started, so it's ad hoc.
For us, I would say we don't have a lot of programs that like have several editions. But we're trying to do that more and more just to like find synergies and, you know, learn from each other. So for instance, the Circle Up project started like a year ago, and now we have a similar version in Nepal. So but usually like we start every time.
I know, very good, the project in Nepal.
Can I note something? I think, I mean, in my understanding, you can standardize it when you are going after the programs and you're choosing, instead of when, they're just like open calls and you see them fit and you're going after them. So that's when you do not have much of a choice and flexibility. Does this make sense? So in Yerevan's case or in Armenia's case, we're basically just trying to find in the pool of those opportunities like programs and choosing from those. Not much of, I guess, choices.
I think it's really, there are some like more proactive business development where you have a program and look for funders, donors.
Yes.
And other times when you reply to an open call or a call for tender. And in that case, also the slide before budgeting normally needs to fit into the specific requirements. And also the activities need to fit into specific requirements. So I also think that was another topic, but more how do you manage your portfolio? Like, for example, we always want to make sure you have 50% public funds, 50% private, because as Marina said in the first class, public funds do not have a lot of margin, like that you can play around. Private, you have higher margins. And also in the private one, you're more free to do a bit what you want than in the public one. So I think it's also a matter of, it's not just black and white. You cannot just standardize, just do always the same budget only. on the right side, there will be always some projects that fit on the left. But from my personal experience, sometimes we were able, even with public funds, to kind of put some activities we knew how to do it from the past. So I think you can push some time to say, hey, why don't we do these linear activities that you've been running for the last years and you know it works. So I think sometimes you can push a bit. Any other comment on this?
I want to share an experience that I've just had with one of our impact hubs, the programs that we're applying to. So it's UN related, and we had designed the program based on the call. I mean, they approached us, and basically, this is just, you know, I want to share this because I'm really annoyed by it. Their concern is to increase the number of the beneficiaries of the program instead of a qualitative one. And no matter how much I tried to fight them, there came a certain point that they were surely saying that no, we don't, not that we do not care, but our aim is just to reach the outreach to be really high and to reach the number of the beneficiaries of the program instead of the number of the workshops, the individual approach, the mentorship, and all of the added quality and benefits that we had offered. So this is the part when you're just getting the resistance and you're not being able to work on the program itself. So I just wanted to share this.
Yes, sometimes you're not really free to kind of educate the client. I think it's a bit difficult. Thanks for saying, TJ. So here, one of the things that was very interesting of the we hosted some community of practice with different portfolio managers, and the first thing that was really important is, okay, what do we define as a program? Because in the Impact Hub language, sometimes you have, okay, co-working, it's very easy to know what it is because it's physical, you have the desk, the chair, while programs sometimes get a bit blurred with events, with consultancy. So when we were looking at the definition of a program, we were trying to see, okay, how do we standardize the portfolio? We always thought that a program is something that has a minimum length. If it's a one-off thing with a short period of time, would not fit into the program category. Had normally a relevant budget. If it's a couple of thousand, it's normally not a program, but more an event or a small consultancy. And one of the things that was very interesting is, for us, programs normally have this cohort experience. It can be entrepreneurs or corporate, but people kind of join together and then go through the activity together and share this experience. And these are actually three factors that you need to consider whenever you then need to standardize your portfolio. The first point, and I think was very interesting also, you shared in the check-in, okay, why is it good to have standardization and what's actually the added value for you? For us, it was very important to make sure you know how to do a budget, because I feel every time when you design a new project, you're guessing how much it can cost. And if the organization is small, or even if it's big and you are doing a lot of new programs, making mistakes in budgeting can have a huge impact on the execution. Then I think for us, the second need was really to make sure when you're starting to have like 10, 20 programs, you need to be very good in allocating the time of the project manager, because you don't want to have a phase of the year where everyone is just like sitting around and waiting for something to happen, or having phases where everyone is overloaded with work. And I think this is kind of how you calendarize the programs along the year, but also how, whenever you break down the program into blocks, for example, application phase, training, mentorship, presential event, and this type of what we call building blocks, you know that the application phase needs always to cannot happen in parallel for 3 programs at the same time, because the team who is in charge of scouting applicants will be busy communicating program A and cannot communicate program B. And from my personal experience, we had a bit this issue because we focus on some verticals. We had female entrepreneurship and circular economy. And then during 1 year, we had 4 programs on female entrepreneurship. And the clients all wanted it to start, of course, on the 8th of March. And then it was like impossible to make sure we were scouting for 4 programs at the same time. So being able to divide it and allocate it well along the year, it's very crucial. Then the third benefit is how do you also gain economy of scale? So I think the first time you need to run, for example, an online training material, it's gonna cost you quite a lot, but it's an investment that makes sense and becomes an investment, not only a cost, if you can use it again in the future. And this, also answering to your question, is it's very important because publicly funded projects love to create toolkits, to create online platform, to create learning material. And it's important for us to know that it requires a lot of time, and it's useful only if you can then use it again and again and again to make sure the cost then of this production can be divided among more programs. And then also, being honest, for us was easier because whenever you had to sell to a client, you knew beforehand, okay, if I'm gonna do this block, which is application, I know how much it costs, and I also know what to expect. I'm gonna have this amount of projects, and sometimes you need to focus on quality, sometimes on quantity. And I think it also made the conversation in the sales process a bit more direct. What I wanted then to share with you is also 2 examples of, okay, whenever you say we're standardizing our portfolio, what's in for you, know? So we said these 4 benefits, but it actually very good here. We brought 2 examples of the network. One is Amsterdam, who realized that sometimes whenever you have a program and you consider the program as a set of activities, so you have the design of the program, you have the building, the branding of the program and the website, the communication. Then you go into the scouting of participants, then you go into the boot camp, then probably an acceleration part, then mentorship. Whenever you have these big programs, they normally have a quite long duration, I would say between 9 to 12 months. It's also a very expensive product to sell. Not all the clients see what's in for them, and not all the times they have 100 plus K of budget to allocate. So what we thought that was very smart, Amsterdam developed, was, okay, how can we make sure we're not the only player doing acceleration or entrepreneurship program? How can we sell some of these smaller activities that we know we are very good? And in their case was scouting. And Amsterdam is actually the reference in the network, but also Global collaborates a lot with them on scouting for global programs like IKEA, like the Tommy Hilfiger one, or Cartier, because they were able to kind of become the best in class into that specific activity. And in this way, they could collaborate with and sell their service to even bigger programs where, for example, Cartier, the capacity building is done in partnership with INSEAD. So Amsterdam could not steal that part, but they could still collaborate and be a partner of the project. This for me was very interesting approach because it really allows you to kind of sell more and not compete with other players that are in your region. And the second example that I think it's very interesting is once you start standardizing and really writing down a bit how you could replicate the project, you can then copy and scale it into different regions. Here I brought our personal example. So Madrid with Coca-Cola partnered in 2017 to a female entrepreneurship project. And then the client was interested in scaling here to Portugal as well. So we're quite close, Spain and Portugal. And we were able to sell the project to the same client into another geographical region. And using the lessons learned ahead, and they trained us on the methodology, on how the project was designed. And it also was much faster because the costs were already known beforehand. And in this case, was really good example. We are now running this for 5 years, Madrid for 8, if I'm not wrong. So it's always good to replicate over and over the project, because it's something you can expect. You know what to expect from the project. As I said before, there's also some challenges that come together with the replication of programs, because sometimes you need to adapt a bit to the local ecosystem. So in our case of the project with Coca-Cola, the beneficiaries in Portugal might not be the same in Spain. Then you also need to manage some, as TJ said before, the expectation of the client. Not every company likes to have a copy-paste project. So you need to make sure that it looks a bit new. And as well, the team, as I said before, you have different profiles in the team. Some people like to do the same project over and over and improve in their execution. Some teams love new challenges. So they love to redesign a project, to have that brainstorming part. And in my opinion, it's always important to make sure you have both. Because if you're starting the year and you know in 2024 you might have only new projects, it's gonna be tough for the whole programs team to coordinate with each other, many questions, doubts, and it's very easy for the budget to kind of oscillate a lot. While if you're repeating the same projects, you're gonna have other challenges. So for example, making sure you have enough participants in the projects is a challenge. But on the other hand, the execution is a bit easier. In the co-creation with the other hub, we try to identify, okay, which are the top 5 recommendations we would give for everyone who's interested in working on their portfolio standardization. And the first one was, you really need to make sure that you standardize a program that matters, in the sense that you need to be sure that standardizing and looking with a critical eye on your program takes time. You have to analyze the numbers, the price, the cost, how many hours you spent in the team. But it only makes sense to make sure you create a blueprint of the program if you know it's going to happen again in the future. So if it's a one-off project with a specific client, and especially, as TJ said before, if it's more a publicly funded project, the likeliness of it to be repeated is small, so might not be worth losing a lot of time in the standardization. The second one is taking the example of what Amsterdam did is use this modular approach, because if you know that the programs always have that specific phases and all together create a complete acceleration program, but taken individually, they can still be service you can sell to a client. It's much easier in the sell part, but it's also easier to build them together. And this is very important to make sure you know when a phase starts and when it ends. And here also, talking about the team and capacity allocation, you can see some hubs work with a project manager transversal to all the different phases, or sometimes they have, once you have like 20 programs running, you have teams that are specialized only on scouting, a team that is specialized only on acceleration, a team that is specialized only on the bootcamp part in event production. So the team is kind of vertical to all the programs, and you don't have this kind of horizontal Swiss knife project manager. These are 2 different ways of running programs. The third one is, it's very important, and here, and Christine might like this, you really need to collect data. And sometimes it's a work that needs to be planned before. I can give you our example, apart from the output, no? So, okay, how many startups participated? How satisfied were they with the programs? To have questionnaires. I think sometimes we forget that management and operational data of the programs are very important. And in our case, I'm like a bit the timesheet and hour control freak, because I really, in our business model as Impactabilismo, we internalize a lot of the execution. We try to keep 70% of execution inside and externalize only 30% to mentors, trainers, but most of the things we do it internal. So imagine if 70% of the budget is our hours, you need to manage them very well. And in this case, you need to forecast how much time it takes you to run a specific activity, and then track your team time to make sure you can compare and in the future know, okay, was my estimation correct or not? As well, this is a bit more easy if it's external costs. So you always know, for example, the event venue, how much it cost, how much it costs to have like a specific mentor. But internal costs sometimes are a bit forgotten, especially when you start. You just say, okay, it might take 50% of the project manager time. But if you do not really measure this time and you don't compare and track it a long time, you might be very wrong. And this can affect a lot because you think the program is very profitable, but in the end, your project manager was working his ass off for like double the time you budgeted it. And here, what I think is very important is to have a good management system, or as well software. Then the fourth recommendation was also try to not reinvent the wheel and build again a new program, but we try a lot to see successful projects from the network and replicate them here. And the fifth is also how you can really use a bit technology to be more efficient. And here, again, it's another trade-off, because I can give you also my example. I work a lot with Excel, especially on timesheets and hour calculation, while there are other softwares like Harvest or Airtable or Odoo as a CRM that are doing the same job more automatically. But also you need to understand how difficult it is to implement it in your organization and how much time it will take you for everyone to use it against what's the information that you want to capture from that. And for example, in our case, we decided to use Google Calendar in integration with Excel to do that a bit more faster and leaner, because we have more granular data. But of course, I also know there are some technologies that do the same. And I think here it's important to assess what softwares you can use. The last thing is we try to take some examples of the network, and in the COP we had Eloise from Berlin, and Naila also from who's based in London, was sharing a bit more the examples of Feeding the City, which was a project that started in London and then was taken to Berlin. And here, what did we see as a cool example was how it had to be adapted to the local context, and how the modular design of the project facilitated the replication. And this we thought was a very good example. And then we had another example of the project we did with Coca-Cola. And in the toolkit, you can also find another one of Techstars as an external partner. But I think more important than everything is to understand how you look at your own portfolio, you choose the projects you want to standardize, and how you can also look in the network for other projects that you want to replicate.